What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pub Sports Radio and welcome to Stat Diggers for UFC Vegas 88. We got Tai Tuivasa going against Marcin Tybura. We are back in the Apex after a very fun card last night in UFC 299. And yeah, this is an interesting card. We got 13 fights here to work with. Looking forward to breaking down, as always, on a Sunday. I am here with Uncle Weezy. Weezy, what is up? You looking forward to UFC Vegas 88?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of a letdown compared to last night's card, but I mean, what card wouldn't be? That was a phenomenal card last night with some really interesting stylistic matchups, some changing of the guard type fights. I mean, BSD versus Poirier, that was everything that it was cracked up to be. The main event was awesome. It was great to see Michael Page make his debut. Seeing Song and Yan square off, that was fun. Jack Della's comeback win in the third round. Incredible stuff. Blades knocking out Almeida in the second round. Kyler Phillips doing his thing. I really enjoyed last night's card. But so, you know, obviously this week, big step down in terms of talent and name value, but a lot of really interesting matchmaking again. Some interesting stylistic matchups. That's always fun to break down those striker versus grappler fights, or sometimes some of these new prospects, guys like Dulgarian, ladies like Jacqueline Amarim. This is a fun card to break down. I'm looking forward to chopping it up with you, Brady, and hopefully we can find some spots that stick out so that we can put a winning streak together now starting this week.
You know which prospect I'm looking forward to?
Which one?
Ovince St. Preux. I heard that kid's pretty good.
Dude, yeah, I mean, he's an explosive athlete, you know, former Tennessee football player, Brady, at the University of Tennessee. So phenomenal athlete, explosive personality. Can't wait to see Ovince St. Preux in the cage again here on Saturday. Great stuff.
Can't wait. All right. Before we get into this card, I do want to shout out the chat, and then we'll do a quick recap of last night. We got TH, first one in the building. Victor de Jesus. We got Andrew. We got another Andrew in the chat. What is up? And yeah, I'm tired as well, man. This whole 1 hour ahead thing kind of just screwed me up. I mean, this day has just completely flown by. We got Tony with the 499. Appreciate you, Tony. Says hi, Brady and Weezy. Love that you guys break down the great cards and even the cards like this week. Just how scary is Pereira at 185? Yeah, the guy is 2-0 at 185 with 2 finishes coming in like the first couple minutes. Yeah, Michel Pereira at 185 is probably going to be a problem going forward.
Couldn't agree more. He looked phenomenal, dude. The power is there, and it's clear that a guy that big cutting down to 170, you just can't perform at 100% when you're going through a weight cut that was probably half killing him every single time. So good to see him up at 185. I had a bet on Oleg Sejcek, tore that ticket up pretty quickly. Pereira looks phenomenal. I'm looking forward to seeing him fight again at 185 because he looks great there.
And he had a great dance routine as well. I was really happy with the dance routine. It was
dude.
awesome.
When I saw the dance routine, Brady, I was like, oh, I had the Oleg Sejcek ticket. I was in my Discord. I'm like, dude, he's dancing. We're cashing this ticket. Wrong. He is so good at 185 now that the dance routine didn't drain him at all, man. I mean, big ups, Michel Pereira. Phenomenal performance. Great run that he's on right now.
Absolutely is. We got Hector catching it live. Shout out to Hector, Elijah one in the building as well. We got Snerius, Yes Freak. We got Chance in the building. We got this name's is giving me problems. Weezy. Eucelis.
Give me problems last is what week. I'm saying. Yeah, okay. Eucelis is what I'm calling.
Because I want to get it right. So shout out to Eucelis. I want to make sure you get your name right there. And we got Natan, the AM bro as well. What is up? What is up? All right, guys, before we get into it, if you guys could please leave a like on the video, subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. Also, don't forget to check out the weekly Pick'ems contest on pubsportsradio.com. Yeah, quick recap from me last night. Pretty much broke even. I ended up 0.01 units, aka $1 in profit, which was nice, I suppose. Untracked, I hit 2 out of 3, plus money parlays, which was good. Also did decent on prize picks. So overall it was a solid night, but yeah, tracked, I went up $1. So, let's see, where do I start? I had some sprinkles on the prelims for some sub props. The one that hurt the most was I sprinkled Michel Pereira by submission in the second or third round like a jackass. and then he goes out there and submits Mikhail Olazechuk in the first round. Was not expecting that. I kind of thought the fight would get a little bit extended, but yeah, the sub 2 is like 17-1. The sub 3 is like 25-1. I guess I should have just bet the sub. Had some sub sprinkles on Amabayev 2-3. Those were kind of close as well. What else did I have? And then I had Jailton Almeida to win in rounds 1 or rounds 2 at like plus 220. And then I also had Jailton Almeida sub 1, sub 2. Not don't hate those bets. I was actually surprised to see Jailton Almeida go out there and get 9 takedowns in the first round, which I thought was crazy, but was just not able to, secure position, was not able to, get his hooks in. And I thought he could potentially sub blades. He didn't. And then in the second round, got his, face pounded in and lost the fight. So yeah, up until then, it was a pretty terrible night. I was getting reverse swept. And my first bet that I hit was actually in the Jack Della Maddalena fight. And I almost lost it. I had Jack Della inside the distance plus 150 for 1 unit. That cash with a comeback flying knee in that late third round. And then I had my biggest play of the night, the under 3.5 in the Poirier Saint Denis fight, minus 225. Wish I went heavier. Probably should have been a max bet. You could tell from the very start of the fight that was cashing. There was no sweat. Those guys went to war. The over 1.5 hit by 2 seconds, but yeah, the under 2.5 cash, which was something I was looking at. The fight won't start round 4 cash, which was something I was looking at as well. But yeah, went really heavy on that under 3.5, and then had a push on the Marlon Vera finish only, just due to that durability. And boy, did he show off that durability. I mean, the flying knee that he ate in that, I think it was the third round potentially, was insane. And he went the full 25, so that pushed. But yeah, hit my biggest spot of the night, the only spot I laid chalk, and then hit Jack Della inside the distance, and then lost on all the other sprinkles. So ended up, like I said, plus $1 on the night. Weezy, how did 299 go for you?
It was a bad night for me because of Jailton Almeida. I was gonna win money if Jailton won, and I was gonna lose money if Jailton lost, and Jailton lost. So but I had some bad bets. Mihail Oleksiejczuk 1 unit at plus 120. That did not go well. That was a ass kicking from bell to bell. That was not good for Mihail. And I had a couple bets that pushed. Obviously, I went with the Vera scorecards equals no action because he's one of the most durable guys on the planet. He proved that on Saturday, but that was just a push. And also the Munoz scorecards equals no action because Munoz isn't going to get finished by anyone. So I kind of felt like those were spots that had some upside, but very, very limited upside because they were probably going to push. And then I had 1 unit on Jailton to win at plus 105. That did not cash. I had a half unit on Caitlin Chukagian to win by decision at plus 260. That didn't hit. I had a quarter unit on the fight to not start round 2 in the Page versus Holland fight. Got a big plus money number there at plus 450. Page did not get a finish there. And then I had a 2 unit parlay, which was Jailton Almeida's money line parlayed with the Poirier Benoit Saint Denis under 3.5 rounds. So it really came down to if Jailton was going to get that win, I would have been up 3 or 4 units, but he, and he looked good in the first round, but it was just weird the way that fight ended because he shot in on that takedown and it was a decent entry. It wasn't a great entry or anything. And then all of a sudden he just went down to a knee. And then he didn't let go of the single leg when Blade started hammer fisting him. And I don't know what happened. I mean, I'm not saying, he looked like he just threw the fight there. I mean, I'm not saying he did that. I'm not saying that at all. But it was just so weird the way he went down to a knee and then didn't let go of the single leg when that was exactly how the only guy who wrestled offensively against Curtis Blades was Cody East. And Cody East got stopped the exact same way. He shot in on a single leg. He didn't let go, and Blades elbowed him in the head until the fight was over. And if, Jailton's camp, that had to be something that they were preparing for because they knew what their game plan was. They knew Jailton was going to wrestle. Why didn't he let go of that single leg and reshoot? I have no idea. It was brutal fight IQ, but big ups to Blades. He's won 2 fights like that now, and he's proven that it's going to be really difficult to submit this guy, to out-grapple this guy, because he stayed calm when Gilton was taking him down and trying to put him in bad spots, kept getting up to his feet and finished with the hammer fist when Gilton took a sloppy shot. So big ups to Curtis Blades, great win for him. Big ups to Michel Pereira, fantastic win for him. Down 3.81 units for me. I had a underdog play that didn't cash because I had Blades not finishing the fight. My greasy 4-leg parlay didn't cash. The only leg that didn't cash was Gilton Almeida. And then the ass shaving of the week was Gilton Almeida. So it was all on Almeida, and it went tits up, Brady. But we get to start again this week. I've already got a couple bets down this week. I'm liking those so far, and hopefully we'll find some other spots that stick out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man, Almeida was looking incredible. I'm like, dang, he's doing this to Blades, 9 takedowns. And then, yeah, the second round happened, which was weird. I hate when guys do that, go for the takedown and just get their head pounded in. The last time I remember something like that happening was Juan Adams versus Greg Hardy, where Juan Adams went for I think a single leg, and Greg Hardy just started punching him, and the ref stopped the fight. I don't know why that happens, but yeah, that was a weird outcome. But yeah, the card was great. I liked pretty much every single fight. Every fight was fun. I think the card definitely lived up to expectations, especially those last 2 fights. I mean, the Benoit Saint Denis Poirier fight was just incredible. Sean O'Malley going out there and putting up 230 strikes, making Marlon Vera look like Chris Matinho. That was incredible. The Jack Della Gilbert Burns fight was incredible. So yeah, the card lived up to the hype, and I'm happy it did. And then we have UFC 300 to look forward to in about a month. I cannot wait for that card. And by the way, they just put Renato Moicano, Jalen Turner. Like that's incredible matchmaking.
I love that, because Jalen Turner is just such a phenomenal fighter to watch, and obviously Moicano always brings it. So that's a UFC 300 worthy fight there. Fantastic matchmaking, just kind of puts the cherry on top of that card, which is as deep of a card as you have all year. So I'm really looking forward to that one. But we got to talk about UFC Vegas 88, and we got to find some ways to make everybody watching some money here, Brady.
Let's do it. And it all starts with Thiago Moises going against Mitch Ramirez. We got Thiago Moises, 28 years old, 5'9", with a 70-inch reach. Mitch Ramirez, 31 years old, 5'11", with a 71-inch reach. Moises, 3 years younger. He's going to have a 2-inch height disadvantage, and he's going to have a 1-inch reach disadvantage. Thiago Moises is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Submission loss to Islam Makhachev. Knockout loss to Joel Alvarez, submission win against Christos Giagos, submission win against Mel Costa, and then a knockout loss against Benoit Saint Denis. As far as Mitch Ramirez, he did fight on the Contender Series. He lost to Carlos Praches, who we saw knock out Trevin Giles not too long ago, and Praches knocked out Mitch Ramirez in the second round, and then he went out there and got, I think, a really early knockout win his very next fight. So there is no line on this fight yet, but I have a strong feeling that Moises is going to be a pretty big favorite here. And the thing with Moises is I think he's a really good fighter. This is a guy that he's only 28 years old. Obviously, he's very good on the ground, has that BJJ black belt. The wrestling's coming along. He's at a great camp. The striking's coming along, but he just seems to kind of fold against, guys when he takes a step up in competition, which you take a look at his losses, and he is losing to some pretty good guys, guys like Islam Makhachev, guys like Joel Alvarez, guys like Benoit Saint Denis, who we just saw last night. Like when he's losing to fighters, he's losing to pretty good fighters. But what I noticed is when he does beat like this, whenever he does fight these lower level guys like a Mel Costa, like a Christos Giagos, he goes out there and makes it look quite easy. And I would kind of throw Mitch Ramirez into that, Mel Costa, Christos Giagos category, if not even lower than those guys. So, yeah, Mitch Ramirez, I'm kind of surprised they're signing him after what happened on the Contender Series. Got knocked out with, I think it was a straight left, wasn't the best look. And I don't know, who was that one guy that fought Klein that they signed off of a loss on the Contender Series? Was it
AJ Cunningham?
Yeah, it's like, I don't know why they signed these guys off of a loss, but I guess they needed somebody to step in here on short notice. Thiago Moises was supposed to fight who?
He was supposed to fight Brad Riddell. Brad Riddell had to pull out, and I'm not exactly sure when Mitch stepped in here, but I feel like it was less than like a week and a half ago.
Yeah, it wasn't too long ago. So Yeah, this just should be a fight where Moises goes out there and just shows that he's the better fighter, shows that he's, fighting, and he's been fighting at a much higher level. You can even expect improvements at 28 years old. He's actually the younger guy in this matchup, although Ramirez is making his debut. I expect Moises to be a big favorite and rightfully deserved. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the stats for Moises, I mean, they pretty much stink, Brady. I mean, like pretty much all around they stink. But there's one thing that's pretty clear here, and that's Thiago's fought a very high level of competition, and there's kind of like a big gap in between the guys that Thiago beats and the guys that Thiago's losing to. Thiago's fought guys with a combined record of 77 and 49 at the UFC level. Now, the guys that are beating Thiago, and he's 6-5, 6 wins, 5 losses. The 5 guys that he's lost to, they got a combined record of 43 and 10. All right. The guys that he's beating, they have a combined record of 34 and 39. So Thiago is the kind of guy who can, win some minutes on the feet if you're not a great striker. If you're not a great grappler, he can get you down, get to your back, and easily finish the fight because he's a phenomenal grappler. But if you can stop his takedowns and keep him off your back and be the better striker against this guy, he's going to find the door as soon as he realizes that he's not winning the fight. And I mean, you go and watch that Benoit Saint Denis fight. First round was Benoit's, and he's really putting it on him. Second round, Thiago goes out there and he's keeping it close and he gets a takedown. And I remember thinking, oh boy, here we go. Thiago's got his back on the mat, and Benoit got his butterflies in. He stood up almost immediately. Thiago got no control time. And right there, you could see the quit in Thiago Moises. And then he got put on the cage, and Benoit starts landing ground and pound, kind of like, not the same position, but kind of like Blades, how we did on Almeida last night. And you were like, oh, okay, time to get out of there. Get out of there, Thiago. Thiago, get out of there. What are you waiting for, dude? Just stand up. Dude, stand up. All you got to do is stand up. And then all of a sudden, ref comes in and stops it. He just quit, And, but is Mitch putting him in that position? I don't think so, man. I think that Thiago is going to find a way to get to Mitch Ramirez's back. And when he does, he's going to find that rear naked choke and finish the fight. But if he fights dumb and if he's unable to get the takedowns, I think Mitch is probably the better striker. But I mean, 24 professional fights for Moises, only 9 for Ramirez. 11 UFC fights for Moises, 0 for Ramirez. There's a big experience gap here. There's a big strength of schedule gap here. And there's obviously a massive grappling skill gap here too between Thiago Moises and Mitch Ramirez. So, and Mitch is actually the older fighter. He's 31 and Thiago's 29. I mean, going on 29 here at a couple days after the fight. So, yeah, you got to like Thiago Moises here.
Was I muted?
I think you were for a second, but now you're not.
Yikes! Yeah, it's been a long day. Thanks, Brady and Weezy, for doubting Dustin Poirier. Never had that big of a payday. Why the hell are you thinking us? Like, what is? Why, that's a weird comment, dude.
Yeah.
I made money on the fight. I bet the under. I didn't have a ton of confidence in either side, but I'm glad you made money there. Moicano got a dust chin. His chin, it will be tested against Jalen Turner. That is for sure.
Yeah.
299 was great. 8 out of 8 winning like Charlie Sheen. There we go. All right. So yeah, interesting. Yeah, some people are they're just a little weird. I don't know why you're thinking us or thinking us there. All right. So we'll move on to the next fight. We have, how the heck do you pronounce this first name? I got the last name.
So this is a Greek name that's just like Harry, right? So the Greek Harry is Haralambos.
Oh.
So it's Haralambos. So yeah, that's how you pronounce it. You don't really pronounce the C, but some people do pronounce the C in America. They'll say Charalampos, but it's Haralambos. Gregorio. Yes.
There we go. Gregorio going against Chad and Hellinger. We got Gregorio, he's 31 years old, 5'7" with a 67-inch reach, and Hellinger, 37 years old, 5'6" with a 64-inch reach. Gregorio is 6 years younger. It's going to be Gregorio with a 1-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach advantage. So yeah, Gregorio, he got a knockout win in the first 60 seconds against Cameron Smotherman. Other than that, he is 8-3 overall. Chad Henniger, he's 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He made his debut against Jesse Strader, won that fight by third round knockout. He beat Muin Gafurov by a split decision on the Contender Series. Has a win against Brady Heastand as well. Lost a decision to Alatang Haley and then lost by submission to Jose Johnson. And yeah, I think this could potentially be like a close fight. Like I was watching Gregorio, I wasn't that impressed. I know, and I think the reason we're getting such a wide line on him was because of his Contender Series fight where he knocked this dude out in 60 seconds. But I was going back and I don't know. I don't think he's that great, to be honest. But on the flip side, you got Chad Henniger, who's 37 years old. I thought the Alatang Haley fight was just a terrible look. The volume was just piss poor in that fight. The takedown defense, I think, is a serious problem for Henniger as well. Yeah, I don't know, Weezy. What are your thoughts about this one?
Yeah, it's hard, because with Haralambos, you got somebody who's making their debut at almost 32 years of age. If you go and you look at the wins outside of the Smotherman win, they're not great. He got completely audited by Christian Rodriguez, but Rodriguez is obviously a stud. We're going to talk about him later in just a fascinating fight with Dulgarian against C-Rod here. But yeah, Gregorio's got power. He's got big power in his hands. And he can definitely sting you early and get you in trouble if he lands big with that right hand of his. But Henniger's got power too. And but it's Haralambos who's younger. He's taller. He's got a 3-inch reach advantage here, but Henniger's got that experience advantage. He's been around a lot longer. He's started off his career 2-5, and then he strung together 10 straight wins after taking 2 years off and changing camps. And he had a really good run. And the guys that he's lost to, he's got a 2-fight losing streak, Brady. He was underdogs to both of those guys. But I kind of feel like if Gregorio gets the win here, that Henniger will be the best name on his resume, in terms of a win. But that kid Smotherman that he beat on Dana White's Contender Series fight, is a good fighter, high volume guy. He breaks dudes, so that was a good win for him. But Chad's a very unique kind of fighter to deal with. He has like a real traditional martial arts style. He kind of stands sideways. He kind of explodes in and out of range. Very funky and unorthodox. So it's an interesting matchup because like you said, Gregorio's got some power. And if he lands on you early, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. But he's not a phenomenal wrestler. He's got some decent BJJ from his back. I saw him kind of play with that a little bit. But then I also saw him go for a leg lock and get his head busted in when he was going for that. So and if I kind of feel like if Haralambos doesn't land a big shot early here, that Chad's going to be very live. And I feel like Chad's got his own power in his own right. And yeah, I think whoever wins the striking battle here is going to win this fight, because I don't really see Gregorio going for takedowns. And I don't know if we can count on Chad to wrestle here either. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's some value, though, on the Henniger side at plus 170. And I feel like if Henniger gets out of the first round, that would probably be the best way to play him. If you're a live bettor, I think Haralambos is going to be really live in that first round. But as the fight goes on and that power fades just a little bit as he gets a little more tired, I think Henniger can kind of take over and win the minutes of the fight late. So I like Haralambos early. I like Chad late. I think the value, though, is on the Henniger money line or potential live bet after round one if he survives it and looks like he's in the fight.
Yeah, one thing Henniger does have going for him is this guy's super durable. He's never been knocked out, but he has been submitted 5 times. But with that said, Gregorio has never submitted anyone. So kind of like that for Henniger as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting fight to start off the card. I think I'd be on Chad if he wasn't 37 years old and on a 2-fight losing streak, but I don't want to lay juice on this Gregorio either. So this feels like a pretty good fight to let the bookies make their line and we can just pass on it.
Yeah, it's definitely a pass. Gregorio is minus 200 and Henniger is plus 170. The over-under is set at 1.5 for some reason. The over 1.5 is now minus 215. The under 1.5 is plus 175.
Yeah, I kind of like the over here. I think the over is just a little bit of a fade on Gregoriou. Um, and Helliger, a very durable guy, as he's never been knocked out, Brady. He's 7-0 to the KO. And that's really important against a guy like Gregoriou, who you got to worry about knocking you out a lot more than you have to worry about him submitting you. Gregoriou 6-1 to the KO, but he's 0-0 to the sub. So if he's not able to knock out a guy in Anheliger that we know has a good shin and hasn't been knocked out before, and we see that Anheliger is a guy who gets most of his finishes later on in fights, I think the over 1.5 at -215 is a pretty solid look this week.
Yep, I think it goes over 2. It should be set at 2.5. That's weird. But we'll move on to the next fight. We have Jacqueline Amorim going against Corey McKenna. We got Jacqueline Amorim, 28 years old, 5'3" with a 67.5-inch reach. McKenna, 24 years old, 5'3" with a 58-inch reach. We got McKenna 4 years younger, same height, and it's going to be Amorim with is that an 11.5-inch reach advantage?
9.5.
9.5. Okay.
Yeah, incredible, right?
My gosh, yeah. I'm not great at math. All right, so we got Amorim, who is 4-1 in her last 5 fights. She made her debut against Sam Hughes, lost that fight by decision, and then she beat Montserrat Ruiz by 3rd round TKO in an absolute beating. As far as Corey McKenna, she is 4-1 in her last 5 fights. She beat Vanessa Demopoulos by decision on the Contender Series. She beat Kay Hansen by decision. She lost to Elise Reed by decision in a fight that broke me pretty much. And then she beat Miranda Granger by submission. And then she beat Cheyenne Vlismus by decision. I think this is I think this is actually the closest line fight on the card, Weezy. Yeah, Jacqueline Amorim, very good fighter. You know, the cardio could be an issue, I'd say, but I don't know. You know, after she went out there and put on a really good performance against Ruiz, maybe the cardio is not too big of an issue. It wasn't the Sam Hughes fight, but you know, that was her debut. Maybe we can forgive her for it. But yeah, she's a legit black belt in BJJ. Her wrestling's not bad as well. Corey McKenna, she's a solid grappler in her own right. Her wrestling's not bad as well. She's going to be at a big reach disadvantage here, though. Yeah, I think this fight's, it is probably close. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what to do with this one, but I do already have a bet on it because I do like the over 2.5 rounds here. You know, I think McKenna and Amorim are both phenomenal grapplers. It's just, I can rely on Corey to be the better wrestler, in my opinion, and I can rely on Amorim being the more dangerous submission grappler. And I think that everybody would agree with that analysis. But, you know, it's 2024, Brady. You know, it's a brand new year, and you're going to see a brand new Weezy. I have forgiven Corey McKenna for the Elise Reed fight. I've completely forgiven her. We have to, as human beings, Brady, and let's stop talking about MMA here for just a second and talk about life. You know, things happen in life, you know, but it's not all about us, right? We got a whole world of people here, billions and billions of people. And for us to think that everything is all about us is very small. It's a very small way of thinking. There's a big world around us. And, you know, we've got to forgive and forget and move on. You know, we got to leave the past in the past. I believe it was Kierkegaard who said something like, you know, there's no more miserable man than one that lives in the past and has hope for the future. You know, meaning that you got to live in the now, you know, and here we are. It's a brand new fight. It's a brand new year. It's UFC Vegas 88. And Corey McKenna versus Jacqueline Amorim has nothing to do with Corey McKenna versus Elise Reed. That was a long time ago. Okay. So now we're just going to look at this fight on the merits. We're going to forgive Elise Reed for beating her. We're going to forgive Corey McKenna for that horrible performance. We're even going to forgive Danny Castillo for perhaps one of the worst coaching performances ever caught on film in between rounds of a UFC fight. You know, I heard somebody say a couple of weeks back, Brady, to their fighter, "You don't need your eyes." Right? When the guy said he couldn't see, he said, "You don't need your eyes. Here's what you're going to do," you know? But I still think that Danny Castillo saying, "Your boxing looks great, Corey," after round number 1 is just as bad, if not worse. But Corey's wrestling's great, Brady. It really is. She's proven that in her last couple of fights out, winning all the minutes of the Vlismas fight, when she was getting those takedowns. She made it look really easy against Miranda Granger. And before the Elise Reed fight, she fought 2 Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu submission specialists in Kay Hansen and Vanessa Demopoulos, and was perfectly comfortable on the ground with them, getting that top position, staying safe from the submissions of her opponents, and winning the minutes of those fights. And I think that is the crux of this fight, right? Can McKenna get takedowns? And if she can she stay safe from the submission attempts of Jacqueline Amorim from Amorim's back? And if the answer to those 2 questions is yes, I think Corey's going to win this fight. As far as the striking goes, yes, Jacqueline has a 9.5-inch reach advantage. But I don't know if that matters, Brady. She couldn't hit water if she fell out of a boat. Look at that 26.5% distance striking accuracy. That's pitiful. And McKenna is not much better at 34%. So I don't think either one of these ladies is going to win minutes in the striking. I think as long as this fight is on the feet, it's going to be a miserable fight to watch. And you're not going to have any clue who's winning. All you know is that the fresh air in between these 2 fighters is going to be getting the shit beaten out of it. But I don't know if they're going to be landing any punches on each other. So it comes down to which one of these ladies gets the takedowns and wins the minutes with those takedowns. And I think that's more likely to be Corey McKenna here.
Yeah, if you put it that way, I think you're absolutely right. And money is coming in on McKenna. She opened up plus 120. She's now minus 125. Amorim opened up minus 140. She's currently plus 105. And like I said, the over 2.5 is minus 185. The under 2.5 is plus 155. If there's a finish, it's on the Amorim side. But like you said, Corey McKenna has went against a couple black belts before, and she came out, went to decision with those 2 as well. So yeah, I lean the decisions and overs as well, but I don't think I'm touching this fight.
Yeah, the over 2.5 rounds at minus 185 available now on Bet Online. That's a 65% implied probability. About 70.8% of women's strawweight fights go over 2.5 rounds. So the line is underpriced by about 6% in that comparison. Amorim over 2.5 rounds in both of her UFC fights. And for McKenna, it's 3 of 4. So 5 of 6, or 83% of their combined UFC fights have went over 2.5 rounds in comparison to the 65% probability of the line. And these ladies are going over 2.5 rounds at a 12.5% rate higher than what the division does. So trifecta bet on the template here, Brady, with about 36 to 37% in combined savings. I laid 1 unit to win a little more than a half unit here at minus 185 on this over. The analytics like it, and I think the stylistic components of the matchup are that this one's going to go to the ground and Corey's going to stay safe from the submissions.
Yep, I agree. I think it goes over as well, which is kind of crazy because Amorim, her first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fights, not only ended inside the distance, but ended in 6 fights, ended inside the first round. But yeah, since coming to the UFC, both those fights have went to the 3rd round. One went the distance, and one was a late stoppage against Ruiz. But yeah, I think it kind of goes the distance as well. And shout out to Dixon. He called it the Morose OnlyFans. It was the OnlyFans fade versus the retirement fade, and the retirement fade lost. The OnlyFans fade came through. So shout out to Dixon. He called it. Yeah, got to give him props.
Dude, that spinning back fist was nasty. I
cannot
awesome. Believe Morose actually survived that. That was crazy. Who else survives that? I mean, like, that was flush. It was right on the jaw. I cannot believe she fought through that. I mean, big ups to Marina Morose showing some serious durability there. And it was good to see JoJo go out in a win. She's a legend. She was there. Yeah. She was there since day one of women's MMA in the UFC. So that was a really cool fight to start off the card.
Yeah, I've always been a really big fan of Joanne Wood. Played a decent amount of her on DraftKings as well. She was very cheap, so that worked out. She scored like 90, I think like high 90s, which was awesome. So shout out to Joanne Wood. Going out on a win is always awesome. All right. Yes, she went Robbie Lawler style. That spinning back fist was freaking awesome. We didn't get to see a spinning back fist from Parisian, sadly. The fight didn't last long enough.
It didn't last long enough, man. I mean, like, this guy's 6'7" and falling backwards and knocking out heavyweights, dude. I mean, it's just crazy, dude. This guy's going to be really fun to watch, the Despain guy. I'm looking forward to his next fight.
It was crazy. I mean, Parisian was working all, on that footwork, and it didn't save him the cage, man. He was working on he was doing the ladder, was doing the cone drills. Couldn't
What he should have done was like got himself on one of those extender things where they're just like almost drawing and quartering him so that he could, get super long and actually match that length of Despain. I think that would have been the only chance that he had, man. That dude is just a physical freak.
Brady get some help, Jonathan. No, I'm still just speechless from that fight, to be honest. I was just speechless because it was going so good up until it wasn't. But does he need some help? Maybe he does. Maybe he does need some help. I don't know.
He's got to get a lot more comfortable in his striking, Brady, because that's one thing that was just painfully evident is that this guy is not comfortable at distance striking range. So until he gets comfortable there, because the thing is, he can get comfortable there. He's tall enough, he's long enough, he's fast enough. His striking fundamentals look pretty good. He's just got to understand that, hey, they're really worried about your wrestling. So you're going to be able to have some success with the striking and start throwing a little bit more on the feet at distance and using that striking to set up your takedown entries. He looked panicked. He shot in. He got caught. It is what it is. We move on to next week.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And we're going to move on to the next fight to Josh Culibao going against Danny Silva. We got Culibao, 29 years old, 5'10" with a 73-inch reach. Danny Silva, 27 years old, 5'11" with a 70-inch reach. We got Danny Silva 2 years younger, 1-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach advantage. We got Culibao is 3-1 and 1 draw in his last 5 fights. Had that draw against Charles Jourdain. Decision win against Charlie Underdenbeke. Decision win against Sung Woo Choi. Submission win against Meerschaert Bagdasaryan, and then a decision loss to Lerone Murphy. As far as Danny Silva, fought on the Contender Series. I think he was a dog in that fight. Ended up going out there, putting on a very fun performance and winning that fight by decision. So on paper, Weezy, I feel like this fight has potential to maybe be fight of the night. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a Danny Silva fight, and you watch this kid fight. He's a Cub Swanson protege, and he's got nice hands. I think the guy has a boxing background. And that's his first martial art. So when you watch this guy fight, he's one of these dudes that likes to kind of just stand on a napkin right in front of his opponent, and he's very comfortable in that pocket. He wants to be in boxing range, not in kickboxing range, and he's very comfortable just in there slipping and ripping. He has confidence in his head movement and his ability to be able to, use that movement in order to, as his defense while he's in that pocket, throwing in combination, hooks, going to the body, straights. He's got some really nice and really crisp boxing. And if you haven't watched his Dana White's Contender Series fight against Angel Pacheco yet, it is an all-timer. Gotta watch that fight if you want to get an idea of what this guy Silva's fights are all about. It was just a phenomenal fight. And Angel Pacheco, though, was a perfect dance partner for Danny Silva because Pacheco wasn't trying to take him down. He was willing to stand in the pocket with Silva, who was landing the bigger shots, who was showing a little bit more defensive responsibility. Silva's a fun prospect, and I think he's going to be in fun fights. And the same thing with Culibao. Culibao's slick at range, Brady. He's really fun to watch out there. He does a good job of using his length well. He throws his punches straight, and he kind of keeps his opponents on the end of his punches. He's definitely flashed some power numbers there. You could see the 1.72% distance knockdown percentage, and he's landed 3 knockdowns in 5 UFC fights. And his sub kind of came as a result of a little bit of a it wasn't quite a knockdown, but it was like an awkward exchange where they were both off balance, and he landed a good enough shot that the guy dropped, and he just jumped on the neck there. It was a really opportunistic finish against Meerschaert Bagdasaryan in Abu Dhabi, I believe that fight took place. But I think Culibao is going to be trying to be the one that keeps this one at distance. I think that he's going to want to be the longer striker. He's going to want to be using those kicks. He doesn't want to voluntarily enter that pocket with Silva, but because Culibao can't really wrestle, Brady, I think he's like 0 for 11 on his takedown attempts, or it's 0 for 13. he's not going to be taking Danny down. I don't think. He might try, and he might even get a takedown or two, but I think Danny will probably be able to get back up. And I think that these guys are going to throw down. So from what I've seen from Silva, I don't have any reason to believe that he's not going to be trying to march this guy down, trying to close distance and forcing a fight. So as a result of that, I think that Culibao, who's very accurate and very powerful, can find a big shot. And I think that Silva's going to be walking Culibao down and potentially finding some big shots of his own. I don't know if either one of these guys is durable enough to survive the other one's best shots. So I took a shot here at plus money on the under 2.5 rounds for 1 unit at plus 155. I think the stylistic components of this fight, Brady, are that it's going to be a boxing-based war. And I think both of these guys have power. And I think somebody gets served in under 12.5 minutes.
Yeah, that's definitely not a bad look for, how I'm seeing the fight playing out, just an all-out war, all-out brawl. And if it does go over, it's going to be one of those fights where you say, how the hell did that go to decision? How the hell did that fight go to decision right there? So, yeah, plus money. I was actually surprised to see it was that big of plus money because, yeah, Danny Silva is going to bring it, and Culibao is definitely going to oblige. I mean, the amount of volume, really both guys threw on that Contender Series fight, Pacheco and Silva, I think they combined for like over 800 significant strike attempts, which is
I got it in front of me. Let me look. Because Danny landed 204. Angel landed 197, but Pacheco threw 491 and Silva threw 317. Oh my God, dude.
ridiculous.
Over 800 significant strike attempts in a 15-minute fight.
Ridiculous.
Amazing. You got to watch that fight. I'm begging the Stat Diggers audience, if you haven't watched Pacheco versus Silva, put that on top of your list of fights to watch, fights to tape for this week, because it's just an all-timer. It's one of the best Dana White Contender Series fights of all time.
So Culibao is minus 180. Danny Silva is plus 155. And then, yeah, the what did you get the under at again?
Plus 155 for the under 2.5 just before showtime. I jumped on that one. And there's a couple others that I'm looking at as well that we're going to discuss.
Yeah, so it's still there, plus 155. It was plus 175 for a second, but and then the over is at minus 185. So we got Dixon in the chat saying he's on Danny Silva. He's a junkyard dog. I mean, yeah, I believe you. I'm almost certain he was a dog against Angel Pacheco, and he came through. So maybe he comes through again here as a dog.
Yeah, he could. I mean, he's gonna bring that fight to Josh. It's gonna be about who's landing the bigger shots and who finds that chin first. But it's going to be a war, and I can't wait to watch that fight. And that's the great thing about cards like this, Brady, is that you don't necessarily have to have the best names, but if the matchmakers do their job, they can make cards like this wind up being just as entertaining of fights as the higher level, more name-heavy cards like we saw last night.
Exactly. I always like some good matchmaking. Like, for example, we'll talk about Kennedy and Nzechukwu versus Ovince St. Preux. That's just great matchmaking there. Just a well-matched fight, I should say.
Yes, absolutely, man. That anybody can win that fight. Anybody, Brady.
Yes. All right. I'm actually really looking forward to your thoughts on this fight. We got Jafel Filho going against Ode Osborne. We got Filho, 30 years old, 5'7", with a 68-inch reach. We got Ode Osborne, 32 years old, 5'7", with a 73-inch reach. We got Filho 2 years younger, same height, and it's going to be Osborne with a 5-inch reach advantage. Jafel Filho, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He had a knockout win against Vinicius Salvador. Back in the day, he beat he lost to Muhammad Makaya by submission in his debut. Then he bounced right back with a submission win against Daniel Barres in just one of the most exciting rounds you'll ever see. That fight was freaking awesome. And then as far as Ode Osborne, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. A decision win against CG Vergara, a knockout win against Zaruk Adashev, a knockout loss against Tyson Nam, a decision win against Charles Johnson, and then a submission loss to Asu Almabayev. So, yeah, I'll never forget when Ode Osborne made his debut. It was on UFC 246, where Conor McGregor was fighting Cowboy Cerrone. And then in an interview, Ode Osborne said, years from now, they'll be talking about how I was on the card and not Conor McGregor, basically saying he was going to be above Conor McGregor. And then he proceeds to go out there and get guillotined by Brian Kelleher. I always thought that was funny. But yeah, he's been finished by Brian Kelleher by guillotine. He got finished by Manel Kopp. He got finished by Tyson Nam. He got finished by Asu Amabayev. He almost got finished in that third round against CG Vergara. Yeah, I think the cardio is a big question mark with Ode Osborne. I think the durability is a big question mark with Ode Osborne. And Jafel Filho, this guy's solid. This guy showed a ton of toughness in that Barras fight. And of course, he showed off that incredible grappling, which that's something that Ode has kind of struggled with in the past. This guy's been finished a ton in his career. So should be a fun fight. I'm leaning violence here. I haven't checked the line yet, but I'm thinking some type of violence yes, they're onto it. Some type of violence. Yeah. But Weezy, what are your thoughts on this fight here?
Yeah, the bookies are definitely onto the violence here, and why wouldn't they be, Brady? Jafel Filho, 3 career losses, 2 of them inside the distance by submission. Ode Osborne, 6 career losses, 5 of them inside the distance, 3 submissions and 2 knockouts, so he can get finished any old way. So you're talking about 9 career losses, 7 of them inside the distance, 77% loss rate inside the distance for both of these guys. So, you could expect Ode Osborne to land a knockdown, knockout potentially, because he's got legit power and good length and size for the division. And we know that Jafel Filho is a solid striker in his own right, but where he's most dangerous is on the ground with his submission grappling game. And guess what? Ode Osborne loves to get submitted. He just loves it, man. He's doing it all the time. 3 losses by submission, getting guillotined by Kelleher out there. He's definitely live to get submitted in this spot too, because Filho's very, very slick on the ground. And we got to remember, dude, if he fights anybody but Makayev and gets him in that knee bar, everybody taps to that. I mean, I'm surprised that the ref didn't step in and stop that fight when he saw what was being done to that young man's leg. I mean, we didn't get to see Makayev fight for almost a year after that because of he was so severely injured in that fight. Almost anybody would have tapped to that. So, yeah, I guess you got to be looking where they're going to open this Filho by sub, because you got to feel like there's a high probability of that. But, Filho is not just a submission guy. He's got 5 wins by knockout. And as a matter of fact, he's 5-0 to the knockout when he's 9-2 to the submission. So he's actually got a better, winning rate by knockout than he does by submission. So it's an interesting fight, but I mean, I just don't know where. I don't know about Ode Osborne right now, man. I 2 out of the last 3 are losses. The wins over guys like Vergara, Zaruk Adashev, who's just tiny for the weight class. Very, very close win over Charles Johnson. I don't know, man. I kind of like Filho here. I did kind of like the under, but man, minus 215 right now for the under 2.5, Brady. So yeah, they're definitely onto it, and I get it. I think that's actually, even though it's way overpriced for the benchmark for the division, it's definitely a fairly priced line with this kind of a fight.
Yeah, minus 215. I think it hits, but yeah, for a flyweight fight, that is definitely paying a lot. So yeah, minus 215 to that under. The over is plus 175. Looks like some money is coming in on Filho. He was minus 155 the other day. Now he's currently minus 170, and then Ode Osborne is currently plus 145. I just don't trust Ode Osborne. I don't trust the durability, the submission defense, the cardio. Whereas with Filho, I kind of do. I kind of do. He showed off durability, heart in that Barras fight last time out. He's shown cardio. He has finishes later in the fight. So yeah, I think it's definitely Filho for me. Going to be looking at the props and maybe some type of violence in this fight, because I do think it's one of the more violent fights on the card, and even though it's a flyweight fight.
Absolutely. It's striker versus grappler, in my opinion. While Ode's a good wrestler and he's got some submission chops of his own, I think his best chance to win this fight is on the feet, because he's so big for the division, tall and long, and he's flashed some power here at the UFC level, landing 2 knockdowns in 8 UFC fights, and he's got 2 wins by knockout. So he can hurt you on the feet, and definitely Jafel is very, very dangerous on the mat. So yeah, I could see it being violent either way here. It's going to be an interesting flyweight fight.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We got an interesting fight there. And then an interesting fight here. We got Josiane Nunes, the return of Joseph Benavidez, going against the return of Chelsea Chandler. We haven't seen Chandler in a while as well. We got Nunes. She's 30 years old, 5'2" with a 67-inch reach. Chelsea Chandler, 33 years old, 5'8" with a 68-inch reach. Nunes 3 years younger. It's going to be Chandler with a 6-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach advantage. Josiane Nunes 5-0 in her last 5 fights. She had a knockout win against Bay Malecki. She had a decision win against Ramona Pascual. She had a decision win against Zara Farron in a fight that I honestly thought she lost that fight, but they gave her a win there. As far as Chelsea Chandler, she is 4-1 in her last 5 fights. Made her debut against Julia Stolyarenko. Looked like she could be like the next contender in the division, and then goes from that to just looking just atrocious against Norma Dumont and a terrible performance there. So yeah, I taped this fight. I looked into it, and I just want nothing to do with it whatsoever. Chelsea Chandler, I feel like if she can get on top here, she could probably do some solid work. But, Josiane Nunes, she's so physically strong. If she's able to keep this on the feet, you got to favor Nunes on the feet. Chelsea Chandler is just so hittable. I don't think her striking is that good. I don't really trust either of these fighters. I think this is another really closely lined fight here. A fight that I will not be touching. But Weezy, I'm curious to hear if you like a side on this one here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited, dude. This is the next chapter in the storied combat sports career of Joe Benavidez, and this is the next act. And who knows how many more acts there will be. So we got to keep watching this, Josiane Nunes is a southpaw. Chelsea Chandler is a southpaw. You know who else is a southpaw, Brady?
Joey B.
Yeah. You can't fake that. You can't be like, oh, I'm a southpaw. I've been doing that my whole life. You can't, in your next act as a mixed martial artist, go to being, an orthodox fighter now. You've always been a southpaw. You're going to remain that way. You can't fake that. So yeah, Nunes is obviously a southpaw. But this version of Joe Benavidez is trying to kind of leave the wrestling in the rearview mirror and concentrate on the power striking. And man, Josie's got power, 3 knockdowns in 3 fights. And Chelsea's got power of her own too. So Josie's got 11 fights. Chelsea's only got 7 though. So Josie's definitely the more experienced fighter at the UFC level, as well as overall. And we can count on Nunes to stop some takedowns and be okay in those grappling exchanges. But if Chelsea Chandler gets on top of her and gets to a dominant position, I mean, she's shown that the ground and pound is really nasty. So, I mean, I think that this is a great fight. I think it's going to be a really exciting fight. I love the matchmaking here. These are 2 very aggressive finishers in the women's bantamweight division, and I'm looking forward to seeing them square off. But like you, Brady, I kind of feel like this is a hard fight to handicap because they're both so powerful. You have to it kind of comes down to which one of these ladies lands the big shot first, and they're both pretty poor defensively.
Look at that on the right hand.
Right? Yeah. Has anybody ever seen them in the same room at the same time would be the question that I would ask. And I've been asking it at the last 3 stat diggers that we've broken down Josiane Nunes's fights, and nobody's ever given me an answer. Nobody's ever provided that photo evidence to me. And until that day, Brady, I'm going out on this. I'm going out on my shield here. Prove 100%. Prove it. Now shut up.
You can't
prove it that this isn't the next act in the great combat sports career of Joe Benavidez, and your Uncle Weezy will never bring it up again. I just want to see them in the same room at the same time. Take a picture with each other.
We got Chip Plylar in the building, bro. I'm sorry, Chip. I'm sorry that I don't want to bet this fight. I don't know what you want me to tell you. I have quite a few bets each card, but I'm sorry that I do not want to bet on Josiane Nunes versus Chelsea Chandler. It just feels like a freaking landmine here. So I don't know. I feel like we talked about Joseph Benavidez more than even breaking down the fight, but rightfully so. Rightfully so. Where they have this line, they got Josiane Nunes -140, Chelsea Chandler +120. I don't know, dude. I thought the Josiane Nunes fight versus Zara Farron was just a terrible look, but at the same time, I can't trust Chelsea Chandler. I don't know, man. I really don't. I feel like on the feet, it's definitely Nunes, but if Chelsea can get this fight down the mat, like that could be the round. So I don't know. I'm not touching this one. The over under set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 -150. The under 2.5 +120. And then you'd have to rely on somebody going out there and actually getting the finish. Any thoughts on that total?
Yeah, God, neither one of these ladies has ever been finished. And I mean, like Chandler got the hell beaten out of her by Norma Dumont, and she never gave up. And Nunes's only loss, I believe, is to Tyler Santos.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think she lost to Tyler Santos on the regional scene, and Tyler didn't finish her. Tyler's a great kickboxer, very powerful on the feet. So while it's going to be a juiced under because both of these ladies are scary and they're both great finishers, Chelsea's finished 3 of her 5 wins. Josie's finished 7 of her 10 wins. They're both pretty durable and pretty tough with a lot of heart. So I don't know if it's, let me look at the prop template here. Nunes Chandler, under 2.5 plus 120, the over 2.5 minus 150. It's showing the over as the more fairly priced bet based on past performances. And I like the fact that neither one of them's ever been finished. So maybe I'd lean that over 2.5, but I don't know, man. You know, Josie lands once and you're in the shadow realm. She hits so hard, and Chelsea Chandler's no joke at all. I mean, she's powerful. She's got a great top game and ground and pound game. So I'm going to just enjoy this fight. This is going to be a violent fight. And I like both of these ladies. I'm fans of both of them. So I'm just going to sit this one out, I think.
Yeah, I had a bet on Josiane Nunes to finish Zara Farron and ended up smashing my TV after that fight. And then I also, for some reason, bet violence in the Norma Dumont Chelsea Chandler fight. Smashed another TV, dude. So I'm down two TVs between these two. And I really don't want to be down a third. So I think I'm going to sit back and watch this one. And that Dumont fight was so close to finishing. Like the ref was about to step in whenever Chandler ran right into the cage, but still, I mean, that was wild.
But think about it, Brady. What you could do is take all that money that you lost, double it, and put it on this fight. And then if you get it right, you can buy back the 2 TVs that you smashed. And I mean, what could possibly go wrong, right? I mean, you know you're cashing the bet. Whatever side you're on, you're cashing it. So
but I don't know which side is the problem.
Like, the comeback, the revenge bet, you know, what could possibly go wrong?
I like that idea. I just don't know what the bet is. So I like the idea. It's just what do I put the money on to get it back? Because we got to get it back.
I don't know, man. Unfortunately I can't be of much help because this one's perplexing me a little bit.
Yeah, it's same. All right, let's move on to the next fight. I'm really looking forward to the return of Mike Davis. Glad we get to see him in 2024. Can't wait for him to fight, have a good performance, and then we'll probably see him again in 2027. But we're seeing him here nonetheless. He's going against Natan Levy. Natan Levy, 31 years old, 5'9" with a 71-inch reach. Mike Davis, 31 years old, 6 foot with a 72-inch reach. Same age there. Mike Davis with a 3-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach advantage. Natan Levy, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He had a submission win in the 3rd round on the Contender Series. He lost to Rafa Garcia by decision. He beat Mike Breeden and Gennaro Valdez both by decision. As far as Mike Davis, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He beat Thomas Gifford by knockout, lost to Gilbert Burns by submission. He beat Mason Jones by decision, and then he beat Slava Borshev by decision. So, yeah, I was telling Weezy before the show, man, like Mike Davis, this guy has it all. He has very good striking. He has a wrestling background. He's a BJJ black belt. I mean, this guy is incredible. Like, there is no hole in the game of Mike Davis outside of just never fighting, right? So you take a look at this guy in the last 5 fights, I think in the last 5 years, he's averaging like one fight. Like that Thomas Gifford win was so long ago. I remember watching that live and just thinking like the ref needs to just go to prison for that performance the ref had. I mean, Mike Davis beat the living crap out of Thomas Gifford, and that was 4 years ago. It feels like it was yesterday, but 4 years ago when he beat the crap out of Thomas Gifford, changing that guy's life probably. And then he beat Mason Jones 3 years ago, and then he beats Slava Borshev a year and a half ago. So this guy hasn't fought in a year and a half. So yeah, inactivity. He's been dealing with injuries. I think he's been dealing with a lot of injuries as well. That's what he's been saying. But yeah, when he steps into the cage, he's very good. He's very good. So I think his only 2 losses come against Gilbert Burns and Sadiq Youssef on the Contender Series. So yeah, this guy's very good, and he's going against Natan Levy. it should be Mike Davis. Mike Davis is a big favorite for a reason. I like the striking of Mike Davis. I think he's going to be able to keep this fight where he wants it. If he wants to get takedowns, he probably can. If he wants to keep it on the feet, he probably can. And then his striking, I just think, is going to be on another level, more volume, probably better cardio here as well. So I do like Mike Davis. The layoff is always a concern, but he always takes layoffs. And he always looks good. So give me Mike Davis. And Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this guy Davis is a phenomenal prospect, and I mean, it's unfortunate he's 31 years old, because if he had been busy, this could be a spot where, he's a top 10 fighter, because, like, I think this guy was like a state champion wrestler or a very high level high school wrestler in New York. He trained at Customato's gym between the ages of like 14 and 19. His main trainer was the same guy that was training Mike Tyson, for Christ's sake. And then this guy's got a BJJ black belt as well. And then you look at him, he's huge for the division at 6 feet with a 72-inch reach. He's an explosive athlete with power and fast hands. So it's always frustrating when prospects of that level, you just don't get to see them fight. It's like Gregor Gillespie, and it's like, come on, man, fight more. We love watching your fights. And Davis kind of fits into that category. And here we are now. I don't know how long after the last fight for Borshev, but it's about a year or something. Or I'm sorry, a year and 5 months. Are you kidding me? I mean, like, he took like 9 months off before that last fight, and before the fight before that, I think it was a year and 3 months. So it's a shame that we don't get to see Mike Davis more, because he's a phenomenal talent. Really crisp boxing, a lot of power on the feet. Has the ability to be able to win a ton of minutes with the wrestling game, like we saw in the Borshev fight. We saw that he's also very durable and can absorb a lot of punishment in the Mason Jones fight. And he showed that in the Thomas Gifford fight, that when you give him somebody that's not on his level, that he's just going to go out there and beat 7 shades of shit out of him. And he even had a decent performance against Burns. Just Burns is such a suffocating grappler that when he did get Davis down, he got that submission. So, man, this is going to be a tough matchup for Natan Levy, who, in my opinion, just hasn't shown much, man. I mean, he beat Mike Breeden, but the only thing he really showed in that Breeden fight was durability and heart. As far as skill goes, man, Mike was beating him up in the 3rd round, and Natan just happened to find a couple of big shots in there. Going full 3 rounds with Gennaro Valdez, that's a bad look, dude. And Rafa Garcia is a solid fighter, but Rafa made it look like, yeah, Natan, you want to grapple me, man? You're not out grappling me. So he showed that even a guy like Rafa, who's a solid wrestler, solid grappler, Natan wasn't better than him in those areas. He's got flashy striking. He's got a great physique and a great size for the weight class. He's obviously got a ton of muscle. I mean, the guy looks like he was carved out of marble. But the problem is that Davis is taller than him. He's faster than him. He's longer than him. He's the way better boxer. He's the way better wrestler. And the boxing means that he probably wins the minutes on the feet, Brady. And the wrestling means that he can either win minutes with his wrestling on offense or prevent Levy from getting the takedowns and just keep the fight where he is winning the minutes already on the feet. So I like Davis here. I think that this one could potentially finish in under 2.5 rounds. And right now the under is at plus 180. And I think there's a couple of ways to look at that. I mean, Davis is a big favorite. I think he's had a big skill advantage in a couple of different areas here. So I could see him getting a knockout or a club and sub type of situation. Also, Davis is on a 1.5-year layoff. And Levy's got some pretty flashy striking at distance. He's got that traditional martial arts kung fu background. He could catch you with the spinning shit while you're kind of like getting into the flow of the fight, because you don't ever fight. So maybe if he starts off slow, Natan might catch him with something. So under 2.5 at plus 180 is a pretty good look to me right now. And I like Davis here. I'm really glad that we get to see him again. Phenomenal talent, all around skill set, athletic ability. What's not to like other than the inactivity here? I think Davis gets the job done.
Yeah, and I agree with this. To be honest, I think Mike Davis is pretty much better everywhere. I agree. Outside of activity, he's not that active, but when he does fight, he's really good. And he is the 2nd biggest favorite on the card. He's currently sitting at minus 270. Levy sitting at plus 230. I see Davis is a very popular parlay piece this week. I think that parlay piece comes through. And yeah, you mentioned the under as plus 180. I could potentially see a finish here. Might be taking a look at Davis inside the distance, something like that. Maybe even a better price there. But yeah, I could potentially see some violence in this one for sure. I don't think that Levy has ever been finished, but I also know that Levy's never fought Mike Davis.
Yeah, dude, and Breeden had him in bad spots. Dude, the Ben Lugo fight, I mean, I think a lot of refs would have stopped that fight. But what Natan Levy really has proven, Brady's, this guy's got a ton of heart. He's not going to go out there and quit on himself or on the people that bet on him. So you got to keep that in mind for this fight. You know, who knows where Davis is going to be at? Obviously, there's been injuries, you know, so we'll see how this one shakes out. But you got to like Davis here.
Yep, 100%. All right, let's keep moving on. We have a very fun fight here. We got Gerald Meerschaert going against Bryan Barberena. We got Meerschaert, 36 years old, 6'1" with a 77-inch reach. Barberena, 34 years old, 6 foot with a 72-inch reach. We got Barberena 2 years younger. It's going to be Meerschaert with a 1-inch height advantage and a 5-inch reach advantage. Meerschaert is 2-3 his last 5 fights. Submission win against Dustin Stoltzfus. Decision loss against Christoph Jocko. Submission win against Bruno Silva, knockout loss against Joe Pyfer, and then a decision loss against Ange Petrosky. As far as Bryan Barberena, he is 2-3 his last 5 fights. Decision win against Matt Brown, knockout win against Robbie Lawler, submission losses to RDA and Gunnar Nelson, and then a decision loss to Mahmoud Muradov his last time out. So it's not too often we see like Gerald Meerschaert as a favorite, especially like minus 200 favorite. Like typically Meerschaert's the underdog, and you typically want to bet him as a dog. But yeah, he's a favorite here. Bryan Barberena is the younger guy, but in fight years, I'm not sure. I mean, Bryan Barberena has taken a ton of damage. He's been dealing with a ton of really bad injuries later in his career as well. I think he had like a really bad back injury where the doctor said he probably shouldn't be fighting ever again. But he kept on fighting, and yeah, he took a lot of damage in that Muradov fight as well. Muradov almost knocked him out a couple times. Muradov took him down over 10 times in that fight. So yeah, I think at this point, Meerschaert, although older, probably even the fresher fighter, even though Meerschaert has a ton of fights in his own right. Yeah, Meerschaert looked good in the Petrosky fight. I thought that was a close decision. A lot of people thought that Petrosky was going to go out there and starch him, and that wasn't the case. Like, you could make a case for Meerschaert potentially winning that fight. It was close. Obviously got knocked out by Joe Pyfer, had an upset win against Bruno Silva a couple fights ago as well. And yeah, Meerschaert, I think he's solid. I think his striking's underrated. I don't think his wrestling's the best, but maybe Bryan Barberena's takedown defense is so bad that Meerschaert might be able to get takedowns here in this fight. And if he does, we've seen that Bryan Barberena just has a huge hole in his game, and that's the grappling. So yeah, I like Meerschaert here, but laying a minus number in general on Meerschaert is something that we don't really see often. Like, this guy is more often than not the dog, and I'd be curious to know, and how many of his fights is he actually a favorite, because I don't think it's much.
Yeah, and it's not, but he's definitely a favorite here, and a rightful favorite at that, Brady, because I mean, I don't know how you take Bryan Barberena seriously at 185.
Right.
I mean, this guy wasn't even a big welterweight. And the biggest hole in his game, Brady, is that, he's got less than 50% takedown defense. And now he's going to move up to middleweight, where much bigger men are going to have an even easier time taking him down and controlling him. I don't understand this move. I mean, it seems like he's not taking his career that seriously, because he should be fighting at 170. You look at him at 170, you'd be like, this guy could probably make 155. And it's not out of, I mean, like Mike Davis makes 155. He's 6 feet tall, I mean, he's got a longer reach than Barberena. Why can't Barberena make 155? But I mean, he's going to be fighting a guy in Gerald Meerschaert who has 27 wins by submission. Bryan Barberena has 29 professional fights. Meerschaert has 27 professional wins by submission. And he's fighting a guy that's a welterweight who's come back from some serious injuries with 50% takedown defense and 3 losses by submission in his pro career, 2 losses by submission out of 9 at the UFC level, coming against really accomplished submission grapplers in Rafael Dos Anjos and Gunnar Nelson. So I think Meerschaert can get this fight down to the ground. But the problem is, Brady, is like you watch this guy's fights and you'll have these fights where he's got these massive grappling advantages and then he's not really trying to get takedowns. He seems kind of happy to strike at range and try to land big body kicks from the opposite stance. This is a southpaw versus southpaw matchup. That could be interesting, but yeah, I like Gerald here. I'm just not ready to lay minus 170 or whatever, minus 200 on him. And I'm also not going to lay juice on the sub prop, which is probably what you're going to have to lay. So this feels like a stay away because I don't want to have the plus money on Barberena either. I don't think he belongs here at 185 pounds. And I think he's just frankly sick of cutting weight. And he probably had some fights left on his contract. And he's like, I don't want to cut down to 170 anymore. So I'll just take my losses at 185.
Yep, agreed. It should be Meerschaert here. But yeah, Meerschaert minus 200 on the money line. His sub prop's going to be minus 150.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so obvious, right? Like, come on, like it should be a Meerschaert sub. I agree with everybody in the chat. We'll see where we'll see where they do open up that prop at. So yeah, Meerschaert minus 200, Barberena plus 170. The over under set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 plus 120. The under 2.5 minus 150. Yeah, I mean it's a Meerschaert fight. You got to lean violence.
Yeah, and Daniel's saying in the chat, maybe they couldn't find him a fight at 170. I mean, like, frankly, at 170, that's one of the deepest divisions, in the entire UFC. They should have been able to find him. I think it's Bryan who wanted to move up. He didn't want to cut weight anymore. And, and when you get to be 34 years old and you've got 29 fights like Barberena, you've been around that block, you know that you're getting towards the end of your MMA career. A lot of these guys are like, fuck that. I'm not blowing out my kidneys anymore, cutting weight, the week that I'm fighting. I'm going to go into that cage feeling and being able to perform at my peak by not draining myself, and I'm going to let the chips fall where they may. And with Meerschaert, he might get a guy that doesn't try to actively wrestle that much, and Barberena might actually wind up getting the fight that he wants here. We'll see. It's an interesting matchup between two experienced and well-rounded veterans, and I think it's going to be a fun fight to watch. But yeah, I mean, I think that the most obvious result is something that the bookies are going to be on, and there's probably not a lot of value in it. It's like last week, Brady. I wanted to bet Robelis to Spain by first round KO, but did I want to pay minus 175 for it when the guy's entire career was 5.5 minutes long? It's like, yeah, I think I'm going to be right. But if I make that bet and it goes tits up, and I
like an idiot,
minus 170 on a KO prop on a guy with 4 professional fights in 5 minutes. That's one where you're like, oh, what was I thinking? And it's the same thing with Meerschaert, because you're going to be laying like minus 150 on Meerschaert sub. And what if he's like, I think I'm the better kickboxer. I'm going to try to win a point kickboxing battle. Wouldn't be the first time, man.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't. Like he does, and he has done that quite a bit. Like a lot of his submission wins are like club and subs.
Yeah, or just fights where like the other guy, like the Stoltzfus fight, Stoltzfus was taking him down.
Right,
like, Dustin, what are you doing? Why are you taking this guy down? But, so Gerald finds that way to get that third round sub. So maybe GM3 third round sub. I kind of feel like that's the auto bet, right? That's the bet that you have to make.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the Bruno Silva was a club and sub in the third round. Stoltzfus was a submission win in the third round. Murdov was a club and sub in the second round. Fabinski tried to take him down.
Yeah.
Well, that was crazy. And then he subbed him in the first round. And then, he submitted Trevin Giles in the third round, submitted Daron Wynn in the third round.
Wow.
Oscar Bahota in the second round. So, a lot of round 2, round 3s. So maybe that's the move here.
Yeah, because Meerschaert does start kind of slow. And like, even though it shows him as an above average volume wrestler, frankly, he's not a very efficient grappler. He's not really a minute winner. The guy is submission or bust. So, yeah, I think that's the way you got to go. But the bookies are absolutely going to be onto it.
Yep. And Dixon said it. What could go wrong with GM3 at chalk? Nothing. Nothing can go wrong. And I looked it up. GMC's been an underdog 16 times from what I can see in the UFC. He's only been a favorite like 4. So.
Yeah, that's if it was 16 times and there's only 19 UFC fights, then that's he's not comfortable in that position of being a favorite.
Yeah, but this is probably one of the more favorable matchups for him, to be fair. So we'll see if he goes out there and gets it done.
Yeah.
All right. Here we go. We got Macy Chiasson. I'm not going to call her Justin Bieber. The joke's old. We get it. She looks like Justin. I'm not going to say it. We got Macy Chiasson going against Pannie Kianzad. We got Chiasson. She's 32 years old, 5'11" with a 72-inch reach. We got Kianzad, 32 years old, 5'7" with a 66-inch reach. Same age there. Chiasson with a 4-inch height advantage and a 6-inch reach advantage. Kianzad, she has 3-2 her last 5 fights. Decision win against Sierra Eubanks. Decision win against Alexis Davis. Decision loss against Pennington. Decision win against Lena Landsberg. And then a decision loss to Ketlin Vieira. As far as Chiasson, she has 3-2 in her last 5 fights. Decision win against Shanna Young. Decision win against Marion Renault. Submission loss to Raquel Pennington. A decision win against Norma Dumont. And then a knockout loss against Irene Aldana. And just want to double check and see how long that Chiasson has been off, because it seems like that Aldana fight was a long time ago. Yeah, 1 year and 5 months.
Yeah, 1 year and 5 months, man.
And 5 months ago was that up kick to the liver, one of the more crazy finishes we've ever seen. But yeah, Weezy, just take it away. Yeah, seriously, I really, you could take it off the card. I don't care.
Yeah, it's a rematch, man. It's a rematch of the Ultimate Fighter finale back in 2018. Now, the biggest difference is that the first time they fought, it was at 145 pounds. And if there was an active 145-pound weight class in the UFC, Macy Chiasson would be in it, and she would be performing very well there. But she is massive. She's massive for the bantamweight division, and she's got really tough weight cuts to get down to 136 pounds. So I think that, the fact that this fight's taking place at 135 is a major change from the first time that they fought, because Pannie belongs at 135. Macy belongs at 145, in my opinion. But when she gets a good weight cut at 135, she is a difficult puzzle to solve, because she's so strong in the clinch. She's got such great top control when she gets on top of her opponent, and her length at distance is very difficult to deal with as well. She's going to have a 6-inch reach advantage here. She's going to have a 4-inch height advantage. And these ladies are right around the same age, and they have similar UFC experience numbers, but it's Pannie who's a lot more experienced overall. Pannie, shows the better distance minute winning here, landing 7.13 and absorbing 5.45 at distance. A positive 1.68 distance strike differential is very good, while Macy shows a little bit of power here, as she's landed 2 knockdowns in 9 UFC fights. She's got 2 UFC wins by way of knockout. Macy definitely the much more opportunistic finisher due to her size, strength, and power, and that ground and pound game of hers is also excellent. I think that obviously Macy's going to be the one more likely to win minutes in the clinch and on the ground here. And if she fights a smart fight, and if she has a good weight cut, I think that she's probably going to beat up Pannie, but I think you kind of have to wait to see her on the scale, don't you, Brady? This is somebody that's on a 1 year and 5 month layoff. There's clearly either been injuries. Let me see here. I got Macy's Tapology page up here. Yeah, the Yana Santos fight in June of 2023, Chiasson withdrew from that. Then we didn't see her again for 6 months. She was supposed to fight Ketlin Vieira in January, and it was Vieira that withdrew from that fight. So now this is her next opportunity here, and it's against Kianzad here in March. So it looks like she was ready to fight at the beginning of the year, Macy was. But she did have to pull out of the Yana Santos fight. So I'd be interested if anyone knows in the chat why she had to pull out of that Yana fight, and if there was an injury, if it was injury related, I'd like to know. But either way, I kind of feel like Macy gets disrespected by the books, Brady. That she's always got a pretty good price next to her name, and I like her in this spot, but I would definitely need to see her on the scale first.
Yeah, Macy missed weight at featherweight before. She weighed in at 148.5.
Yeah, she's huge, dude. She's 5'11". You know, 5'11", trying to make 136 with as much muscle as she has on her frame. She's a seriously strong girl. So, yeah, this is what is the biggest part of this fight is that you can go back and watch how Macy dominated Pannie and finished her in the second round the first time around, but you know. None of those ladies wound up fighting at 145. They all wound up moving down to 135 because they never really could make a go of the featherweight division. And Pannie's done a lot better down there than Macy has because it's just such a brutal cut for Macy.
Yeah. We'll have to see her on the scale for sure. But looks like Macy Chiasson opened up minus 180. She's currently minus 170. Pannie Kianzad opened up plus 155. She's currently plus 145. The over under set at 2.5 rounds. The over is completely juiced to minus 350. The under is at plus 275. Any thoughts on any props or any money lines here, Weezy?
Yeah, I mean, the prop template likes the under at plus 275 because, you know, these ladies, for instance, one of them was a finish by Kianzad or by Kianzad got finished by Macy in both of their UFC debut, but Pannie's fights have only went under 2.5 rounds 1 of 9 times, but for Macy, it's 5 of 9. So when you add that up, it's 6 of 18, 33%, 1/3 of their combined UFC fights have finished under 2.5 rounds, but you're only paying 26.67% on the line at plus 275. So it's a small trifecta bet on my prop template here. It's a big plus money number at plus 275. So you could always hope for, Macy to get some good ground and pound, land a big shot on the feet, or you could hope for Pannie Kianzad to land a up kick to the liver just 3 seconds before that fight went over 2.5 rounds. Brady, I bet on Macy Chiasson in the Aldana fight at plus 170 for 1 unit. She was winning that fight. And I also had the over 2.5 rounds parlayed with something else that hit. So that meme up kick was like a 4 or a 5 unit swing for me because I lost the over 2.5 rounds, killing that parlay, and then I lost the Chiasson money line bet for like what it would have been a 1.7 unit win, I think, and instead it was a 1 unit loss. So that up kick was the worst.
Yeah, I actually had a bet on Aldana, and I was on our way to losing that fight. Then the up kick out of nowhere saved me there, so that was good. But yeah, that's brutal. I mean, when do you see that? Never.
That
Just
was a
never.
crazy finish. Just a
Yeah.
crazy finish. That's the sport we bet on.
It certainly is. All right, let's keep moving on to the next fight. We have, I think this is my favorite fight on the card here. We got Christian Rodriguez going against Isaac Dulgarian. We got Christian Rodriguez, 26 years old, 5'7" with a 71-inch reach. Dulgarian, 27 years old, 5'7" with a 71-inch reach. We got Rodriguez 1 year younger, same height, same reach. Christian Rodriguez is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, made his debut up a weight class on short notice against Jonathan Pierce in a fight where he lost it, but his stock definitely rose there, had some moments. Submitted Joshua Weems. Weems came in there with that blue hair, got submitted for it. He beat Raul Rosas Jr. by decision. He beat Cameron Simon by decision. As far as Isaac Dulgarian, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. And he made his debut against Francis Marshall, won that fight by first round knockout. So they're doing a prospect versus prospect here. Both guys are guys that I like. Both guys are guys that a lot of people do like. A lot of people are really excited about these two fighters. And they kind of did it in his last fight as well. They did a prospect versus prospect fight with Cameron Simon and Christian Rodriguez. You know, those are two guys that I think are pretty solid. Even like Raul Rosas Jr., another prospect versus prospect here. So this is a hard fight to break down. It's because, you know, Dulgarian's looked just phenomenal. You know, 6 fights, 6 finishes, all come in the first round. He looks incredible in the early going, but you know, what does he look like in the second? What does he look like in the third? We really don't know. And with Christian Rodriguez, he's a guy that's just as tough as nails, and I have a feeling we might see the later round. So I think in this fight, we're going to find out a lot about really both guys, but especially Isaac Dulgarian. This is one of those fights where I'm just going to sit back and watch as a fan. I'm going to collect some data here and see what happens. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one?
That's what I'm doing too, because we just don't know what Isaac's going to look like. But Isaac's got a high level wrestling background of his own. DC was talking him up when he fought Francis Marshall in his UFC debut. talking about how Dulgarian's a 2-time state champion, but he actually should be a 3-time state champion. Due to a referee error, they disqualified him from a bout that DC said he should have never been disqualified from. So that was the one piece of missing information I had on Dulgarian coming into that Marshall fight. Was there wasn't a lot of information on him, and there wasn't a lot of tape on him, right? 5 fights. Those 5 fights took something like 11 minutes. I mean, he was just destroying these dudes in NFC, I think it was. So, you know, it was really easy fights for him. And he comes into the UFC and you're like, well, what will he look like out of the second round? And then I didn't know that the guy was that legitimate of a high level wrestling background. To be a 3-time state champion in any state is a phenomenal start to an MMA career. So this guy Dulgarian's the real deal. Christian Rodriguez fighting up at 145 this time, Brady. The UFC's had enough of his bullshit. He's missed weight 3 times. And even when he fought at 145 against Pierce, I seem to remember him being one of the last dudes to the scale, and he barely made weight there. So, you know, that has to be taken into account, because Christian Rodriguez is a bantamweight. He's definitely a bantamweight. He just doesn't have the self-discipline to get his weight cuts dialed in. So now here he is up a weight class, and he's going against a guy in Dulgarian whose ground game is just it's flat out scary, Brady. This guy's getting people down. They don't get back up after he gets them down. And the amount of ground and pound that this dude is landing is crazy. And he clearly has the ability to lock up submissions on the mat as well, whether it's an arm triangle or a rear naked choke or a guillotine. This guy's got it all. But Christian Rodriguez is a guy that we know can go the full 15. We know that he's been in there against good wrestlers like Jonathan Pierce, like Reyes Cortez on the Contender Series, like Raul Rosas. And yeah, he can get taken down, but he can also get back up. And if he gets back up and that guy gets tired, that's going to be a problem, because Rodriguez has hands and he's got a great offensive grappling game and submission game in his own right. So I don't know, Brady, what do you think about this? Like, if you're going to play the Dulgarian side, maybe you bet Dulgarian like and under a round and a half or something like that, because he's so explosive early. But I kind of feel like if you're on that Rodriguez side, that maybe you wait for a live bet towards the end of the first round. If you're like, oh man, C-Rod's going to get out of this first round, because then at least you could say, we have no idea what Isaac Dulgarian is going to look like outside of round 1, especially with that idea in the back of his head about what happened in the second and the third rounds of the Raul Rosas Jr. fight, where we saw, oh yeah, you know, if you're not getting takedowns against this guy, he can get takedowns of his own, or he can reverse your shitty takedown attempts, get on top of you, and make you pay if your gas tank fails you in the second half of the fight. We've seen that Christian Rodriguez absolutely has the ability to make somebody pay late in the fight, to turn the tides, to not give up on himself and use his own grappling game to win minutes and moments. So this is a fascinating fight, but I feel like I've just got to get more information on Dulgarian. The information that I already have is that this guy is incredible, but I don't know what he looks like after round 1.
Yeah, for sure. Pete saying, "Don't ever think it plagued Dulgarian and thank me later." Shout to Pete. Yeah, and it's crazy. Like I think I said it for sure. It was the same breakdown in the Marshall fight. It's like, what does this guy look like after round 1? We didn't find out. Maybe we don't find out here. You know, it's so it is kind of interesting there. What I find very interesting is this total. They set it at 2.5, and it's, you know, the over 2.5 is -125, the under 2.5 is -105. I find that pretty interesting, considering if you add up the entire career of Isaac Dulgarian, it's like barely over 12.5 minutes combined. So that's kind of interesting, that the over-under set at 2.5 when this guy's literally never been to a second round. Any thoughts on that? I know Rodriguez is tough, but geez.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I was like, okay, yeah, maybe Dulgarian doesn't get the finish in the first, but then, you know, could Christian get a finish in the second? Could Dulgarian get a finish in the second?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, you know, it's those like in the Gerald Curtis fight, you know, when you are that dominant in round one, oftentimes that first or that second takedown in round two is when the guy stops getting back up. When they realize, like, holy shit, if I keep getting back up, he's going to keep taking me down. And, I could just find the door now, because if I don't find the door now, I'm going to be wearing this dude like a cheap suit for the next 12 minutes or whatever it is. So that's often when you see like maybe Dulgarian has a big first round and you're like, okay, Rodriguez now, this is his chance to start the comeback. But if Dulgarian goes out there in the second and gets another takedown and gets to half guard and starts landing ground and pound, that's where Rodriguez might be like, oh, damn, this kid's for real, and he certainly appears to be for real. This guy Dulgarian has looked absolutely phenomenal so far. I think maybe that's the best way to play it, dude. Just bet violence. You're not laying a ton of juice on the under 2.5 here, and Dulgarian's never even seen a second round.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, money's coming in on the over, which is interesting. So the over was plus 120. It is now minus 125. So maybe I don't know, and I don't like the over here in a Dulgarian. I wouldn't bet an over in a Dulgarian fight, but we'll certainly see. Best fight on the card, in my opinion. This fight's phenomenal matchmaking. I'm looking forward to seeing who comes out on top. And then they have the opposite here. I mean, this is the opposite of phenomenal matchmaking. This is, I mean, whoever made this fight should probably, go to prison. Like, what is going on here? We got 40-year-old, almost 41, Ovince St. Preux going against Kennedy Nzechukwu. We got OSP, 40 years old, 6'3" with an 80-inch reach. Kennedy, 31 years old, 6'5" with an 83-inch reach. Kennedy's 9 years younger, 2-inch height advantage, 3-inch reach advantage. OSP's 2-3 in his last 5 fights, a knockout win against Alonzo Menefield, knockout loss against Jamal Hill, knockout loss against Tanner Boser, decision win against Shogun in a fight that nobody won that fight, come on, and then a knockout loss to Philippe Lins. As far as Kennedy Nzechukwu, 3-2 his last 5 fights, decision loss to Nikolai Negamarianu, knockout win against Carl Roberson, knockout win against Ian Kudalaba, submission win against Devin Clark, and then a knockout loss against Dustin Jacoby. So, I don't think this fight should be sanctioned. I don't think OSP should be fighting, and I think I've said that like his last several fights. Like even like the Shogun fight, he probably shouldn't have been in there, and that fight was super competitive, which is a major concern. He got starched by Philippe Lins. He got starched by Tanner Boser, who Boser's not really starching anyone. Yeah, this should be Kennedy. This should be Kennedy all day. The only concerning thing is like there's been some really weird outcomes in a couple Kennedy fights where it just makes you scratch your head a little bit with this guy. But I mean, come on, Kennedy Nzechukwu should go out here and he probably finish. I know Kennedy's a guy that typically finishes 2-3. I think he probably finishes in 1 here. I don't think OSP should be fighting at this point of his career. He just looks terrible, man. Like he's looked terrible his last 4 fights, just like awful. And nothing has changed other than he's only getting older and only taking more damage. Like he just had a brutal knockout loss against Lins. So yeah, this is Kennedy, and this is Kennedy probably inside the first 5 minutes. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this fight?
Dude, I don't know what the hell you're thinking, man. I mean, look, dude, 7 fights from now, when Ovince St. Preux is 45 years old and he's rematching Jamal Hill for the light heavyweight title, you're going to be like, Weezy was right. This guy's got the athletic ability. He's got the experience. He's got the power. He's going to make a run. He's just on a little bit of a dry spell, losing 3 out of the last 4 fights and barely eking out a win over the corpse of Mauricio Shogun Hua. Yeah, look, Kennedy kind of needs a get right spot, Brady, and I guess that's what this is. He had a tough loss the last time out to Dustin Jacoby. He got sparked early and finished. But, I think that this guy's still a phenomenal prospect at 31 years old. That's still young for this division. 205 pounds. And he's got the height. He's got the reach. He's a southpaw. He's got really good striking on the feet because he throws weapons that other people can't throw. The guy throws a knee like it's an uppercut. I mean, he can get you with that knee from so far away, from angles that people shouldn't be able to land a knee from. Kennedy can land that knee. And, but the thing is, you got to be careful here because Kennedy's a minus 500 favorite, and you can touch this guy once and he'll drop. And he is very hittable, Brady. He's got a 54% distance striking defense. He's been dropped twice in 10 UFC fights, and he finds himself getting hurt a lot. Dude, Devin Clark had him in trouble in the first round. Ion Kutalaba landed a big shot in the first round against him. Nikolai Negamariano landed some shots. Jacoby flatlines him in the first. Da Un-jung flatlines him in the first. Carlos Ulberg absolutely goes ham on him in the first. So this guy, Kennedy, is not defensively responsible. He takes entirely too much damage early in fights, but if he can get past that early part of the fight, that's when he really starts to do his best work, because he is constantly pressuring Brady. He does throw a lot of volume for the division, and he can land strikes from freak angles that most people can't. So he's a very good fighter when he survives that early storm. But that's the great thing about this one, right? Because Ovince St. Preux walks into that cage looking like he just was drinking cough syrup with Lil Wayne. You know, I mean, like, dude, he looks so slow in there. I mean, and the funny thing is that this guy St. Preux is a phenomenal athlete. He played, football at Tennessee, one of the best college football programs in the country. And this dude was like a linebacker out there getting tackles against some of the best athletes in the country. He's clearly a great athlete. He's a unit. But like, he just do you remember that clip that we were watching on Twitter the other day? That one dude that came out with his hands down, looking like he just got out of bed, and then he got head kicked 10 seconds in and finished. Like, that's what Ovince St. Preux looks like, dude. He just looks like somebody like poisoned his food. He just looks slow and logy, and like he just doesn't care. And I mean, if you had to worry about St. Preux having like that early power, that early spark in him, he just doesn't have it. So yeah, I mean, this should be Kennedy. This should be a good get right spot for him. And I still think Kennedy can make a run in this division. I think he's a very unique problem to deal with the length, the height, the unusual striking, the fact that he's starting to mix in wrestling and win some minutes with that wrestling, Brady, makes him truly terrifying with that size that you just can't teach. So yeah, let's get Kennedy a nice get right spot for him, and we'll see what the next fight is, and if it's a little more compelling, and maybe we can make some money off it, because I don't see how I'm going to make money off of this fight.
I mean, it's pretty simple. 5 units to win 1 on Kennedy.
Is that what we're doing?
No.
I put that in my Discord, and people were like, Weezy, no. I'm like, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. I learned my lesson last time when I max bet him.
Yeah, he's definitely an interesting character, Kennedy Nzechukwu. But yeah, you're right. Ovince St. Preux just looks like he doesn't want to be in there. Like, I can't remember the last time it looked like he cared in a fight. Probably the Mennefield fight.
Doesn't look like even that Mennefield fight, he was a big underdog. Remember that?
Yeah. So yeah, Kennedy's the biggest favorite on the card. Very popular parlay piece this week. I wouldn't parlay him at this price tag, but it's just really hard to see a scenario where OSP wins. Dixon said maybe the Von Flu. I mean, maybe. We've seen some wild stuff happen in Kennedy fights. I think it would have to be like a Von Flu or something just ridiculous, something meme-ish. But yeah, Kennedy should go out there and starch OSP. The over-under set at 1.5. The over 1.5 plus 125. The under 1.5 is minus 155. So the odds makers agree. I don't think I'm betting this fight unless some props stick out, which, judging by the money line, I think there probably won't be props sticking out. Like Kennedy minus 500, we might see a situation like a Rebellis to Spain situation where Kennedy's minus 500, the inside of the distance is like minus 300. So yeah, it's probably one I'll be staying away from. But yeah, Kennedy should go out there and smoke this dude.
Yeah, and Victor De Jesus, yes, we are not max betting OSP here. Definitely not doing that either. But yeah, like you could tell how big of a favorite and what the bookies think here, Brady, because that under 2.5. Wait, what did you say the under 2.5 was at?
1.5.
Oh, 1.5. It was at minus 155, right?
Yeah, it's juiced. Yep.
Yeah, because that's a 61% implied probability, and we've got 31 fights combined between Kennedy and Ovince, and 42% of their fights go under 1.5, but we're paying 61% on this current line, and that's reflecting the fact that the bookies know that this is a mismatch and that Ovince is basically checked out, showing up for a check, and he'll look for the door as soon as Kennedy shows it to him.
Yeah. And that was a good point you mentioned. Kennedy usually weathers a storm. He's not going to weather shit here. I mean, he's not going to weather nothing in this fight. What is OSP going to do? Nothing. Nothing.
Probably nothing. But yeah, I mean, like maybe OSP by first round KO. It's got to be worth it. I mean, it might be an auto bet in every Kennedy fight going forward from now on, because there's
Right,
just
yeah.
been some, like that Da Un Jung fight was just so weird after he got his face bashed in with a shovel by Ulberg with 200 significant strikes in the first round. He survives that, and then he gets elbowed in the forearm and goes down like a sack of potatoes the very next fight. It's just bizarre, man. Yeah, you cannot be trusting this guy Kennedy with your money, not at minus 500. So it's, can you imagine cashing a first round OSP KO bet?
No. He's got to do something to knock him out.
I know. Oh, God.
Yeah. Sprinkle the OSP sub for fun. That doesn't really sound fun to me, Dixon. Betting on anything OSP related doesn't really sound fun to me, but you're going to get like giant numbers on those, giant
Yeah.
numbers. And I know on MGM you can bet like the exact submission. Maybe bet the OSP Von Flu, like if something stupid, because I don't know. I feel like I don't know. It should be Kennedy. Should be Kennedy in this one. All right. Moving on to, I could have swore they had the Kennedy fight as the co-main event for the longest time, and then all of a sudden they switched it up last second on us.
Yeah, they did. It's going to be Battle versus Loosa,
Yeah.
according to UFC stats. According to Tapology, Tapology. Yeah, they've got that as the co-main event as well, the Battle Loosa fight. So
Yeah. I wanted to see OSP in the co-main event, but I guess this is just as good. Let's see. We got Bryan Battle going against Ange Loosa. We got Bryan Battle, 29 years old, 6'1" with a 77-inch reach. Ange Loosa, 30 years old, 5'10" with a 74-inch reach. We got Bryan Battle 1 year younger, 3-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach advantage. Bryan Battle is 4-1 his last 5 fights. Decision win against Tresean Gore, knockout win against Takashi Sato, a decision loss to Renat Fakhretdinov, knockout win against Gabe Green, and then a submission win against Adrian Fletcher. As far as Ange Loosa, 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Decision loss against Jack Della Maddalena on the Contender Series. Made his debut against Munir Lazez, lost that fight by decision. Beat AJ Fletcher by decision, then beat Reese McGee by decision in a very fun fight there. So yeah, solid co-main event. I'm a big fan of both these guys, actually. I think Bryan Battle's a guy that is only 29 years old. He's continuing to show improvements every time he steps into the cage. I like the high volume striking. I like the opportunistic grappling as well. Ange Loosa is a guy that I like also. This is a guy that's just as tough as nails, elite takedown defense, underrated grappling, high volume in his own right as well. I think both these guys are solid. I think this is a really well-matched matchup, and I think it's a fun co-main event. I wanted to see OSP in the co-main event, but I think this is fine as well.
Yeah, this is I bet against Ange Loosa last time out with Reese McKee. I kind of felt like he might out volume Ange, and he did. But it was a close fight, but Ange Loosa got the nod there. I think this is a good matchup for Bryan Battle, though, because Battle doesn't have the best takedown defense, and we've seen Ange Loosa go to that wrestling in the Fletcher fight and in the McKee fight to win a lot of minutes in both of those fights. Definitely helps him get the nod in both of those fights there. So I feel like Ange Loosa on the feet is solid, but I think Bryan's just way better than him there. I think he's a lot more dangerous on the feet. Both of these guys are hittable, but I feel like it's Bryan that's the slicker striker with a little bit more flash and a little bit more panache, a little bit more power on the feet. And also Bryan's submission game on the mat is really good. So I think that Bryan's going to be the more likely guy to win minutes here. And with Ange Loosa, you got a guy that, since they don't allow you to bring the shovel into the cage anymore, you're probably not finishing this man. He is durable, extremely durable. So I think that Bryan is going to win the minutes of this fight. And I think that the fact that he throws a ton of volume and slows down the volume of his opponents, I think he's going to win the minutes on the feet on his way to a decision here. I'm picking Bryan Battle to win this one.
Yeah, I was liking the over. I was thinking over, but holy crap, they're all over it. So the over is minus 225 now, over 2.5, minus 225.
Yeah, it's a huge number.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Loosa's fights, all 3 of them have went over, but only 2 of 6 Battle fights have went over. So when you look at the prop template, it's telling you that the under 2.5 at plus 185 is severely underpriced. But you're like, okay, Is Ange going to finish Bryan? Because I don't think Bryan's finishing this dude, Loosa. He is crazy durable. So I think that the markets are seeing the same thing that we do, and that's that Bryan's the favorite here. I think he's probably going to be the guy more likely to finish the fight, but he's not finishing Ange Loosa. So people are willing to pay up for that over this week.
Yeah, both guys very durable. Battle has been subbed before, but Ange Loosa's not subbing anyone, you wouldn't think. So, yeah, I think it goes over. I think it goes to decision. Bryan Battle opened up -140, currently -150. Ange Loosa sitting at +130. So, yeah, I was looking at the over, but -225. I don't think I can get there. Maybe a parlay piece, but even then, I don't know. I mean, because these guys are pretty dangerous. It's just they're both very durable, I think. And by the way, is Bryan the butcher this time, or is he going with Pooh Bear?
Let's see.
What's he going with this time?
Because usually they change it on. Yeah, he's got the butcher on the UFC stats website, and that's the official site. So it's the official nickname site and the official statistics site. So they got him as the butcher.
Daniel is on the Bryan Battle hype train. Yeah, but Bryan Battle's a really good fighter. I'm looking forward to it. All right, guys, we got the main event last. If you guys have not already, be sure to smash the like button. Great crowd for an Apex card. We had almost 200 people in here. Appreciate y'all hanging out with us on a Sunday. I say we get into this main event, and we have Tai Tuivasa going against Marcin Tybura. We got Tuivasa, 30 years old, 6'2" with a 75-inch reach. Tybura, 38 years old, 6'3" with a 78-inch reach. We got Tuivasa 8 years younger, 1-inch height advantage for Tybura, then a 3-inch reach advantage for Tybura as well. So we got Tai Tuivasa is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Knockout win against Sakai, knockout win against Lewis, and then knockout losses to Cyril Gane, Sergey Pavlovich, and a submission loss to Alexander Volkov. As far as Marcin Tybura, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Knockout win against Walt Harris, decision loss against Alexander Volkov, decision wins against Alexander Romanov and Blagoy Ivanov, then a knockout loss against Tom Aspinall. So, yeah, when I saw the UFC made this as the main event, I was kind of shocked. I mean, Tai Tuivasa is on a 3-fight skid, getting finished in every single one of those fights. And I'm a big fan of Tai Tuivasa. He's a fan favorite for sure, but holy crap. And as far as Marcin Tybura, this is a guy that's coming off of a first-round knockout loss to Tom Aspinall and then a couple of wins against guys like Blagoy Ivanov and Alexander Romanov. So, yeah, I don't know. As far as this being a main event, I'm not so sure. But in terms of this matchup, I also don't know. I mean, I like the striking of Tai Tuivasa. I feel like he's very live to beat up the leg of Tybura, knock him out early on. But Tybura certainly does have a path to victory here, and that path to victory is going to be getting this fight down to the mat. We just saw Alexander Volkov just school Tai Tuivasa on the ground. We saw Sergey Spivak school Tai Tuivasa on the ground, and Marcin Tybura is a black belt. But I don't know, Weezy. Kind of feels like a fight that could kind of go either way. I'm not sure what the line is. Yeah, it's about a pick 'em. Tai Tuivasa -130, Tybura +110. I would say I would trust Marcin Tybura the longer the fight goes, but this fight could also end like in the first 5 minutes as well. Kind of a weird main event here, but should be violent one way or another.
Yeah, it's an interesting stylistic fight because when you look at Tybura, the numbers over here on the grappling side, he's attempting 4.09 takedowns per 15 minutes. He gets 1.39, and you look at those numbers, it's like, okay, a little bit above average, for the division there in terms of takedown output, takedown getting. He's out controlling his opponents at a 2-to-1 ratio, which is solid, but the grappling efficiency numbers are about average. But when you look at like the actual numbers, right? And you look at how many takedown attempts this guy is getting, right? Tybura had 16 takedown attempts in the Volkov fight. And outside of that, it's really only 43 takedowns over the rest of the fights. And he's not like this crazy volume wrestler. He got 5 takedowns against Stefan Struve. He got 3 takedowns against Maxim Grishin. But other than that, he's never gotten more than 2 takedowns in a fight, and a lot of a lot of fights where you think he was going to grapple, he doesn't really. No takedown attempts in the Romanov fight, 1 takedown attempt in the Ivanov fight, 0 takedown attempts in the Tom Aspinall fight. That ended too quickly. But like outside of that fight where he was 0 for 16 on takedowns against Volkov, I've always been a little bit frustrated with how how little Tybura wrestles offensively, because he's just not a threat on the feet. You know, for a heavyweight to not have power and to not really have a ton of minute winning ability, you know, you kind of feel like if this is a kickboxing match, maybe Tybura's plus 170 here to Tai, because Tai is just way more dangerous and he's also extremely durable. So, I mean, I think you would have to think like, all right, in order for Tybura to win a striking based decision here, you know, he's going to have to avoid the big shot for a long period of time and win the minutes. And I don't think either one of those things is very likely. So if you're on this Tybura side, you better damn well hope he wrestles, because if he doesn't, man, he's not going to look even like a 50% in this fight. I think he'll look like an underdog. But Tybura's got, I mean, as good a wins as Tuivasa. He's definitely fought just about the same level of competition. And Tybura's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu game and wrestling game is obviously a lot better than Tai. Tai's never landed a takedown in the UFC in 14 UFC fights. But it's not like Tybura is this crazy volume wrestler. He's only got 20 takedowns in 18 fights. So I think it's about whether you think that Marcin's going to have grappling success in this spot. Do you think he has grappling success?
I don't know, but if he doesn't go to it, I think he gets destroyed here. I really do. I worry about him on the feet against a guy like Tai. I worry about him on the feet against a lot of guys in the heavyweight division, but especially a guy like Tai Tuivasa, who can, you know, put his lights out pretty easily. So you would think he does grapple, but you're right, and he doesn't get as much takedowns that you'd like to see. He has a black belt though. He's probably gonna have the cardio advantage. And I don't know. We have Tuivasa opened up minus 130, currently minus 128. Tybura opened up plus 110, currently plus 108. I would lean like an early-ish Tuivasa knockout, because if this fight does get extended, I kind of think Tybura is live. And I think maybe those Tybura late props are probably going to be stupid numbers as well. The over-under is interesting. It's set at 1.5. It's completely juiced to the over. Over 1.5 is minus 185. The under 1.5 is plus 155. I'd be curious to know how many Tai Tuivasa fights finish under 1.5 rounds, because it has to be probably a decent amount.
Well, so there's only 4 5-round fights between these two guys, and only one of them has ended under 1.5 rounds. But if we look at the 3-round fights where we got massive sample sizes, 12 fights for Tuivasa, 16 for Tybura, 11 of 28, Brady, have finished under 1.5 rounds. But it's 8 of 12 for Tuivasa, and it's 3 of 16 for Tybura.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, it obviously Tuivasa fights are much more likely to finish under 1.5 rounds than Tybura fights are. So you kind of got to hope that Tai lands a big shot, because if he does, you know, we've seen Marcin not only get knocked out, but get knocked out by guys that you don't really consider to be these murderous power punchers. Like, didn't he get knocked out by he lost by knockout to Augusto Sakai and Shamil Abdurakhimov back-to-back in 2019. That's a really bad look. And then 2 fights before that, he got knocked out by Derek Lewis, but that's Derek Lewis. That's the heavyweight knockout king there. But Shamil Abdurakhimov, handsome, yes. Murderous power puncher, not really. And then, you know, Augusto Sakai, obviously a solid kickboxer. That's his base, but he got knocked out in 59 seconds by Sakai. So I kind of feel like you know, there is a chance that Tuivasa gets the job done early, but the longer the fight goes, Brady, and the more that we see Tybura go to the wrestling here and kind of try to take advantage of the weakness in Tuivasa's game, you could see him being the better veteran, the better game plan, the guy who finds his ways into the grappling exchanges. And when he does, he'll land a lot of ground and pound. But he's not like a submission even though Tybura is a BJJ black belt, I think this guy's attempted 1 submission in the UFC, and he's never submitted anybody in the UFC. He gets knockouts, but they're ground and pound. His ground and pound is excellent. He just doesn't. You would think that Tybura, being that black belt, would be a lot more active with his BJJ, but he's not. He prefers to land ground and pound.
Maybe he's a fake black belt.
I don't know. I mean, he's a good grappler. When he gets people down and puts that back to the mat, he definitely looks good there. Remember Greg Hardy? Remember what he did to Hardy when he got
Oh,
him
yeah.
down? So yeah, this is it's an interesting main event. This wouldn't have even been on the prelims last week, but
No.
it's still a fun fight.
Yeah, it could be fun. I hope it's fun. The last heavyweight main event wasn't fun, but maybe this one will be a Marcin Tybura main event. But yeah, fun fact: Tai Tuivasa has 8 wins in the UFC. 7 of those 8 come under 1.5 rounds, and the only one that went over 1.5 and he won was against Andrei Arlovsky, where he dropped him bad in the first round.
Yeah, so that would probably be the way to play the Tuivasa side, as you say. Marcin doesn't go into the grappling early, and Tai finds a big shot, because the likelihood of Tai finding that big shot late second round, third round, when he's not a conditioning monster, probably goes way down after that point.
Yep, for sure. All right, Weezy, I think we did it. Covered all 13 fights on the card. Any final thoughts on UFC Vegas 88?
Yeah, I'm looking at some of these time props. I think there's some interesting openings on the time props. I've already got 2 bets: the over 2.5 rounds in the Almarim fight and the under 2.5 rounds in the Silva fight. But I'm looking at Bryan Battle's money line. I like Kennedy and Nzechukwu to win, Brady. You heard it here first on Stat Diggers. Nobody else is going out on a limb and making those predictions. I'm going to probably stay away from Rodriguez Dulgarian and just get some information. But that minus 105 for the under 2.5 rounds there for a guy in Dulgarian who's never even been out of the first round, that might be too good to pass up. I might need to get in on that. But yeah, this is phenomenal. I'm loving this card. I think it's going to be a really fun one from a stylistic components matchup, and hopefully we find the spots that cash, and we can have even more fun watching these fights.
Absolutely. Can't wait for it. We got UFC Vegas 88 this week. Marcin Tybura, Tai Tuivasa. We got Rose Namajunas, Amanda Hebos the week after that. And then I think we have I think it's the Atlantic City card after that. I think it's Aaron Blanchfield and Manon Fiorot. And then I'm pretty sure it's UFC. No, it's not. It's Marvin Vettori, Brendan Allen, I think another Apex card, and then it is UFC 300. So 4 cards until UFC 300. Cannot wait for that. But yeah, should be a fun card as always. We got fights on Saturday, and you can't complain about that. Weezy, any special plans for this week, or same old, same old?
So tomorrow I will be on Clint's Die Hard MMA podcast on the Home of Fight channel as the special guest. I know that he had a guest drop out last minute, so I'm, Brady and I are always ready to do last minute podcasts because we always do Stat Diggers on Sunday nights. So check me out there on the Home of Fight channel tomorrow. And then obviously on my channel, as always, Brady, Just a Tip with Uncle Weezy Tuesday night, 10 o'clock Central Time. And then we'll do a Wednesday night Ask Weezy as well. 8 o'clock right here Central Time every Wednesday on Pub Sports Radio for the DFS show with Brady, Monk, and Gordo. And then every Saturday for the watch along, where we do these fights. We watch along and talk about our live bets on Pub Sports Radio. But I won't be there this week because I will be in Florida this weekend visiting my father down in Fort Myers Beach. So I'm not going to be on the watch along this week, but you can always find me every week on Pub Sports Radio doing Stat Diggers, doing the DFS show, and most weeks doing that watch along. The only thing left to do, Brady, stack cashed tickets like flapjacks for UFC Vegas 88.
Yeah, man, enjoy Florida. I wish I was there right now. It freaking snowed today. Like, come on. It's so cold. So enjoy Florida next week. Appreciate you, Elijah One. TG saying Kennedy should be minus 1,000. I laid 400 on him. TG, I think you win that bet. I think you win that bet. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll be posting my full card breakdown maybe tomorrow night. I have a couple fights I need to look into a little bit more. I'll do a main event prediction video. That'll be out probably tomorrow morning as well. And then just the usual content, the DFS show, my final thought stream on Friday, and then best bet on Saturday. Best of luck, everybody, for UFC Vegas 88. Should be a fun card. Enjoy it, and we'll talk to you guys very soon. See you later.